What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 36 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Roscoe, and what an unbelievable card we have for you guys today to cover. It is TRAVERS Weekend. Happy TRAVERS Weekend, everybody. Whoever celebrates out there, I know all of you that are watching this show will obviously be celebrating this weekend, but the Personal Ensign is this Friday, covered by the massive battle between NEST and CLAIRIERE. Some argue, some other horses. I don't think that's it's not a far out claim, but I don't think that's what's going to be happening on Friday. But obviously we will get into all of that and much, much more on the Late Pick5 at Friday on Saratoga. But guys, thank you guys all for joining in. Greatly appreciate it as always, as we wouldn't have this show without you guys. So we're going to go pretty quickly here through the peripherals. We're not going to waste everyone's time. We're going to get right in to the Late Pick5 on Friday. As you see scrolling on the bottom, email is Bettin N Boozin, just like the title says, at gmail.com. Any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to email me. Please go below the video player and hit subscribe, the like button, and the notification bell. It not only lets you know about every single podcast that comes up on the HHH Racing Podcast Network, but also it pushes this video out into the YouTube algorithm, which will only get more people watching this show. And for that, obviously, we thank you very much. Please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. As you see scrolling on the bottom of the screen as well, the next show tomorrow, Howard, Pete, Paul are covering the Late Pick5 on Saturday for the TRAVERS Stakes, including 4 grade 1s in the Late Pick5. The 4-go is race 7, therefore is out of the Late Pick5, but there's still 4 obviously being capped off by the $1.25 million TRAVERS Stakes. But real quick, yesterday's podcast, if you guys did not see it, Howard and Paul brought on Jenna Antonucci and Richard Migliore. If you guys have not watched that show yet, I would highly, highly recommend you go watch it. They talked to Jenna about not only everything with Arcangelo leading up to this weekend, but obviously her background as a trainer, and Richard Migliore, everything he thinks for this weekend and all his background and everything. I always love to hear Richard's stories, as we did when Patrick, I, and the rest of the gang went up to Saratoga for that weekend. But guys, like I said, if you have not watched that, I would highly, highly recommend. It was 2 very, very good interviews with 2 very, very likable people. So please check that out if you haven't already. If you're more of an audio listener, please go Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Search up HHH Racing Podcast, so you'll be able to catch not only every episode of Bettin N Boozin, but every single podcast, that gets uploaded to the HHH Racing Podcast channel is uploaded there as well. Again, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. The regular Power Picks, guys, $15.99 a month, comes out to $4 a weekend. That is $4 for 2 tracks of price plays, spot plays, ABC grids, full card top 3 picks, everything you could desire for 1 card for $4, and you get 2 of them for only $4 a weekend. If you have not subscribed yet, you are missing out on the very cheap, very profitable Power Picks. Again, the year-to-date ROI is positive, and ever since they started doing it about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it is still positive ROI. I believe it's 2.35 right now. If you guys aren't subscribed, you guys are missing out. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. And again, Saratoga only Power Picks. You guys have until tomorrow morning to sign up for this weekend. Again, this is the biggest weekend for Saratoga, the TRAVERS Stakes. Please sign up. You guys are going to miss out on a lot of content if you guys don't sign up. It is $20 for all 3 days of TRAVERS Stakes weekend. We have what we're talking about Friday with the Personal Ensign, Saturday including 5 grade 1s, and Sunday with the New York breds taking the stage in their New York bred stakes day on Sunday. Guys, again, you're missing out. HHHRacingPodcast.com. At the top banner, it says Power Picks tip sheet, or you can go into the description of this video to check them out. But guys, we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to get right into it. I'm going to bring on my co-hosts real quick from East New Jersey, who we thought was going to be late today, but he showed up on time. Patrick Kunsel and Charlie Freeman. Boys, what's going on?
Nothing much. How we doing, Charlie? Different.
I was gonna say, Charlie got that different background, huh? With that garbage on the wall in the back there.
Yeah, a little bit of a different setup finally. Now that got the big apartment with my brother, it's quieter, which is nice. And yeah, we've upgraded from Bettin N Boozin back to Bettin N Boozin. And now that we're back here, I won't comment on what I'll do, but let's just say there might be some boozing.
No betting and snoozing, that's for damn sure. But
No.
guys, thanks for joining the show. We're gonna go over. We got a few people here. They'll continue to trickle in as they always do throughout. Richard Avalar is here. Great picks at Del Mar. You hit pick 5, $2,500 on Saturday. I mean, look, that's the one time, right, Richard, where I hate that I don't play pick 5s anymore because I play wins and doubles. But hey, Anna said rolling home. That's still one of the most impressive moves I've seen in a long time. I mentioned this to this group, and obviously with Howard and all them. That horse went from last to first in what, like an eighth of a mile, like a furlong. It was insane. Richard, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for the kind words. I greatly appreciate it. Again, Charles B is always here. Streaming is making money every time. Must follow. Fantastic analysis. Thanks so much, Charles. Again, I know you've been one of the longest supporters of not only Bettin N Boozin, but the podcast in general. Charles, thanks so much for the kind words. And thanks so much for joining the show. But guys, like I said, we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to get right into it here. The late pick 5 on Friday starts with race 6. It is a maiden special weight, $136,000 for 6 furlongs on the dirt. And not to be outdone, we have Jim Pillar's here. He's always here. I know, Jim, you're probably the longest supporter, if not one of them. So Jim, thanks so much for joining the show as well. Main Focus just posted a write-up on Apollo 10 in the comments section where he was mentioned, and someone else in this call has some big words to talk about Apollo 10. I won't spoil who, but you will see coming up. Main Focus, thanks so much for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. But guys, getting into the first race again, it starts in race 6. Main special weight, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. A field of 8 is carded for this spot, with the morning line favorite being the number 6, Fierceness for Irad, Pletcher, and a Rapoli Homebred at 2-1. As I bring up the picks right now, I'm going to bring them up. We are all going with the number 6, Fierceness, with the Rapoli Homebred. Charlie, I'll let you go first to talk about her. But one thing I want to mention before we switch to the PPs, there was a very rough situation today at Saratoga on the first turn. Patrick, you remember the name of the horse, right? I cannot remember the name of the horse. It's Bright something, yes, like that. Sorry. If someone has the horse, please put it in the chat. But Luis Saez was injured. The horse went down. Unfortunately, had to be euthanized. But Luis Saez has a dislocated collarbone and a slight fractured left wrist. So Luis Saez is now out indefinitely. Thankfully, it doesn't look like it needs surgery, but he will be out indefinitely, which includes all of his mounts this weekend and including Mage for Saturday. So everyone keep in mind that Luis Saez is off all mounts for this weekend, which includes obviously Air of Defiance, the number 1, the second choice on the morning line. Burning Bright, thanks so much, Howard. Greatly appreciate it. I knew it was something bright. You guys know my ADD, can never remember anything. But switching over the picks, Charlie, I'm going to let you talk about Fierceness first. What made you put this horse on top?
Yeah, so obviously I'm in with the Rapoli stable. I'm sure it's going to stick out to a bunch of people, and the fact that you got Pletcher linking up with Irad, once again, one of the most consistent duos you'll find in the game right now. For me, obviously, the horse seems very well meant. The workouts look very strong for him. A 48, 47 and 2, a minute and 3. So the horse is certainly working forwardly. And again, Pletcher's not necessarily known for making his horses work that forwardly. He's had plenty of horses that have open favorite or gone favorite that might not have the best workouts that sent out on the page, but simply because of the connections, people respect them. So when I see a horse working this well for Pletcher, certainly catches my eye. And I'll let you guys touch on it more as well, because I know you guys both have the 6, but I was pretty surprised that the 5, who I have in second, Change of Command, is open at 8-1. Obviously the horse going for over $1 million, not cheap by any means, picks up Jose Ortiz, who I know a lot of people sometimes call him just like the other Ortiz because he's not Irad, but he's had a very good meet in his own respect. Another horse that's working forwardly, and certainly any horse that's going for that kind of money and, again, at least working somewhat well, has to be noted should at least do some in the spot.
And this is one of $2 million purchases in this field. The 5, Change of Command, and the horse on the outside, Daily Grind, who did no running whatsoever in this first start. But Change of Command is definitely interesting, working forwardly for Shug, who usually, again, doesn't ramp up his starters first time. It's been a rough meet for Shug, so hopefully Change of Command can run for you, Charlie. But as opposed to Fierceness, when you get a Pletcher's working like this, Rapoli Homebred, City of Light wins at 15% for his 2-year-old first-time starters. I believe it was out of a 56 horse sample size, but there is many things pointing to this being a really good debut for Fierceness. Plus, I like that this horse has drawn towards the outside. But Patrick, I'm going to let you talk about Apollo 10, who you like a lot, and so does Maiden Focus in the chat.
Yeah, I didn't get to see what Main Focus said in the chat previously on our other show, but I'll tell you, knowing what Deterministic did for Clement in that August 5th, when he last ran, and then both of them worked together on August 5th, and Apollo 10 hung right in there with Deterministic, who came back and ran huge.
Yeah.
And I know the boss, got a little intel on Deterministic before that horse ran in that race, and that was a loaded maiden race. So I think Apollo 10 is going to be live in a spot where you should get a square price, just like Deterministic was, because this one's loaded as well.
Yeah, and the thing that I think will come out on Apollo 10, that if he was working with Deterministic, you might not get that 8-1 just because of the buzz created a little bit around how good that horse showed up in debut. But Apollo 10 is definitely one to keep in mind as well. I have the number 2, Anchises, something along the lines of, I don't even know, some probably Greek name would be my guess. And I apologize to all my Greek family out there if they ever listen to this. I'm going to get one for that if I pronounce this wrong. But showed up well on debut behind Billy the Greek, who unfortunately didn't do much running, although he did run off the turf in the Skidmore stakes in that spot. But in cases, I like that. I don't like that this horse is drawn towards the inside, but I do like the experience that this horse has shown, a little bit of grit. Just kind of steady gain, didn't really fire off too much in the last race. I'm hoping to get a little bit better spot, and hopefully second time out for Bill Mott, this horse will be ready off the experience. And I have Air Defiance in third, who Patrick, you do as well. Louis Saez obviously off the mount, as I stated first. Not the biggest worker by any means, but bred extremely well. Ghost Sapper mare, quality road would be, I mean, for me, that might mean just that this horse wants to go a little bit longer, which is why I have this horse in third. But Gold Square, this horse is extremely well meant. This horse should come out firing from the rail. But obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of 2-year-olds against the rail either. But Charlie, I'll let you finish out with Wajda here, or Wada. I'm assuming it's Wajda, for Chad Flavian Pratt Flanagan Racing.
Yeah, I'm glad I let you pronounce the name. I was really hoping you would do it for me. Yeah, for me, it was just quite simple. Flavian Pratt's having a good meet. Chad Brown's one of the best in the business. And I feel like we've talked about this a lot in the show because we've been covering a lot of the baby races lately, that especially just anytime really recently that there's like a Chad Brown horse or a Todd Pletcher horse, it always seems like one of them wins. And for some reason lately, at least from my experience, I've been getting it wrong, where the one that's in theory should be better and the better odds ends up disappointing and the other one wins. So wasn't going to let that happen to me again. So I may try to throw Chad Brown somewhere because, quite frankly, he wins a lot. He's one of the best in the business. You could argue he's the best. So I had to put his horse somewhere. Again, picks up Pratt. The horse is still working forwardly too. Wasn't cheap either. So nothing, it's not like the horse doesn't look good as well. But yeah, I do think in theory, Fierceness should be in very tough in this spot, though.
I don't disagree with you. And obviously, the great thing about a race like this is we say it all the time, is feels like every time we've covered Saratoga, it starts with one of these baby races. But
exactly,
watching the board is going to be your best friend. Watching where the money's going, not only in the win pool, but look at the doubles will pays, look at the doubles probables. Stuff like that can give you a little bit better indication on what the horses look like with that money locked up, rather than the win pool that can change on a dime that we always see all the time, especially at places that are taking so much money like Saratoga. So keep an eye on the board, guys. It is definitely your friend in a race like this. I'm going 6-2-1. Patrick's going 6-3-1. Charlie's going 6-5-4. And Maiden Focus points out that Anchises was working with La Morna, who was a horse I really liked in the power picks. And I swear, I think every horse I picked in the power picks got third. I was extremely upset, but Lamorna ran pretty well on debut, stretching out, or on a second out. Ran well stretching out, but just not enough. But that is where you look. Toyport action. So Maiden Focus says Toyport action on maidens is way overrated. You don't want short prices, but it indicates who's going to be in these types of races, especially with these 2-year-old babies. There's a lot of inside reports. There's a lot of good looks at the workouts and stuff like that. And obviously that's where the money is going to follow. Usually in these main races, the money can be very telling on who is going to run. Sometimes you get bombs, which will always be the case in this game, but usually where the money goes, the money tells. At least that's the way I see it. And going on to race number 7, guys, it is a allowance optional claiming 62.5 for non-winners of 2 races other than going 6 furlongs on the dirt. Draws another field of 8 as I switch over to the Equibase right now. The morning line favorite is a pretty steady morning line favorite at 8-5. Headland for Jose Ortiz, Linda Rice. As I switch over right now, only Charlie is going with the morning line favorite of Headland. Charlie, I'll let you go first again since you have the morning line favorite. What did you like most about Headland?
Yeah, for me, it was just, again, something we've talked about on the show is just consistency. And really, I mean, the horse was running decent figures, but nothing really to, jump off the page, running a bunch of high 70s and into the low 80s. We're like, all right, for this field, like that's respectable enough to be competitive. But then all of a sudden, once June came around, the horse just really decided to wake up. And it's weird because it wasn't really a surface change, wasn't a distance, but Tyler Gaffleone found something, and then Lescano kind of kept it going. Now gets Jose Ortiz with Linda Rice, who, kind of obviously, as you had mentioned before, cooled down a little bit, but, had a few recent wins and started to get going. But for me, I just like the fact that this horse has some versatility, can sit right on the front or just off and makes a move. Certainly will be forwardly paced and has some of, the most early speed in this field, but has run 2 massive numbers with the 89 and then the 93. And I was kind of happy to see the Saratoga figure up because I know sometimes at Ellis Park and some of these other tracks that a strong figure there doesn't always translate to Saratoga, but it looked like it did for Headland. And I just feel like any sort of repeat effort anywhere around that range should make this horse very tough. And I certainly think is a deserved 8-5 favorite. Now, I don't love the price. I would personally hope that the horse would float closer to 2 to 3 to 1-ish or 5 to 2. But to me, still seemed like the clear and obvious top pick.
Patrick, I don't know how you felt about Headland. It just almost seemed, this horse is 7. He's getting up, or she, take a drink. She is getting up there in age, and it's almost just like that drop to claiming really helped her out. And it goes to Lindenbar and just fires another massive number. You haven't seen this from her in many years. It almost seems like.
Yeah, and she's starting to cool down a little bit for what it's worth. She did have 2 wins today, I get it, but her ROI has not been very good of late. And I really don't know who Headland beat last time out that gets me,
There is one horse. Obviously, it's a 5-horse field, but Rosebug is a horse I really like for Bill Mott. But your point is taken because, perfect.
I think this is a tougher spot, and I think horses like who I have, to segue into my pick, who I have in on the 1s and 2s for Norm Cassie, who is just, his stats are just insane. Like we think Linda Rice is having a good meet, which she is, but the way Norm Cassie's going too, he's getting 1s and 2s off the layoff, second off the layoff after running at the end of July. The horse really didn't run too much, faced a competitive field. I just think that horse needed one, and she should be ready to go coming back.
Yeah, and on the 1s and 2s, the only thing I do like that she draws outside speed here.
Yeah.
As you'll see from my top pick, I think there's a lot of horses that want to go to the front in this type of race. We'll just go through the field real quick, and I'll talk about my top pick. You Look Cold is going to want to sit off is who I have on top. Unsung Melody, especially from the inside, is going. Headland is not slow and most likely will want to go. Repealing is automatic go. Hydra, the only chance, in my opinion, that this horse has to win is pretty much go, at least top flight. Easy to Bless is a horse that likes to be forwardly placed but doesn't need to be. And First Act is not going to be there on the 1s and 2s. Being the outside speed is also going to have to go from the other corners. So there's just a lot of different speed in this race. But on the 1s and 2s, who I have in second, certainly to me looks the speed if you go 2-3 back, especially going a little bit shorter. I like You Look Cold in this type of spot. I think he's much better at 6. I understand that he came from Gulfstream where his semi-biggest numbers were. Runs at Belmont, loses to Rosebug, who the 8 beat last time out. But Rosebug being a really nice horse in her own right, I'm willing to look another way or look at another shot with You Look Cold for Bill. Just looks to sit a trip from the rail, a nice stalking trip in like the 6th position with a little bit faster pace. I mean, if you look at these races at Gulfstream and Belmont, they're going 22-4 to the quarter and then 46-2. I mean, those are basically 24-second intervals. I mean, again, 22-3, 46-1. That's another 23-3 intervals. So getting those breathers in the middle definitely means a lot for a horse that could be pace dependent, like You Look Cold. I think she just gets the setup in this type of race from the rail. Joelle hopefully can kick her out at the top of the stretch and blow by. I like You Look Cold a lot in this spot. Charlie, I'll let you touch on your third pick, and Patrick, I'll let you touch on, and we'll move on. The number 7 is who you have in third, Charlie. First to act, Shug McGahee picks up Irad.
Yeah, so real quick with You Look Cold, I had the same angle you did. That's why I've kind of hit on this show. I think you have too, Kyle, where you kind of just look for 2 horses with different styles in the hopes that, that one will kind of help benefit the other and vice versa. That in case one falters, like if the 3 ends up running out of gas, I think the 1, as you mentioned, will sit a perfect trip and might close up in time. But in case the 3 does hold off, which I expect, put it underneath. My angle with First to Act was kind of simple for me. I mean, picks up Irad, just did not run well last time out, off the layoff, but has shown with Irad in the past at Saratoga some very strong figures that would definitely be good enough to be the best horse in this field and get a price on a horse where if the horse returns to prime form would probably be the best horse to beat. You look at the races that First Act has been running in, by far the best competition of any horse in this field. And it comes back with a bullet workout in 36-2. So the horse does look to be working forwardly. I also like, from a pace perspective, could sit a really nice trip, just off that early speed, because First Act still has a lot of early speed, but prefers to sit right off the leaders, which could be very beneficial. It was first time out off a long layoff. So I guess my angle was kind of, if this horse takes that step forward second time out with Irad and runs huge, you could be looking at a really nice price for a horse with a step back to the past could win this race.
Yeah, and First to Act was that horse that I didn't have in my top 3, but I found very interesting just based on her back form. I mean, maybe she's just not the horse she was at 4, which is definitely the case. It could be the case. Coming back 2023, she maybe just needed one, could be another point. But this could be a very interesting spot for Shug and Irad. Obviously, Shug still has this should be viewed as a little bit of a class drop, but brings her over to Saratoga when he could have easily kept her at Monmouth in an allowance or an optional claiming. I think First Act could be very interesting in the mix. But Patrick, the last horse we'll talk about before we move on, Unsung Melody, you have in third. Talk about what her chances you think are before we move on.
Yeah, I just think this horse didn't want the mile and out of the Wilt, in the Wilton. I think she could get back to 6 furlongs. She has early speed. She kind of only has 1 speed, which could be a problem. I do understand that. But she's also another one that's faced tough. John Ortiz has been, for the minimal amount of horses that he brings up to Saratoga, he's been hitting well with them. So I think this horse, if it can revert back to the 6 furlong race at Ellis, I get the front end speed that, might favor there. But I think this horse fits if she can come back to that.
I mean, so Unsung Melody is definitely the horse that's going to take money just based on running line alone, I think.
Yeah.
If you look back, I mean, Merlaza, Punch Bowl, Sacred Wish, Into Love, Undervalued Asset, randomized in the last one. That ring a bell?
There you go.
I mean,
right there.
It's just the fact of this. I mean, she's not bad. I mean, the 84 definitely could show up again, but just the company she's been running in is going to allow Unsung Melody to take more money than obviously she's worth. And we'll see who jumps on Unsung Melody instead of Luis Saez. Ooh, I would like a lot more if Luis Saez was on her, as he tends to be a lot more aggressive than other jockeys, at least in my opinion. So Unsung Melody could be very interesting. But as I stated before, this field is definitely not short of pace. I'm going 1-8-3. Patrick's going 8-3-2. Charlie's going 3-1-7. Guys, switching over to race number 8. Here it is, the one before the big one. It's a very nice allowance race, going 1 mile and 3/8 on the turf for 150. But before I switch to the PPs right now, guys, the elephant in the room is obviously the weather. The weather does not look very good this night, tomorrow and Friday especially. So what we're doing right now is we're handicapped for turf, but I have dirt picks ready to go, and I will give my analysis. I don't know if you guys looked at it for off turf by any means, but I will definitely be able to give you guys analysis on what I think will happen if the race does come off turf. But either way, I'll let the boys talk about, and obviously I'll talk about my turf picks, but we will surely be more focused on the dirt picks as well. Just want to give you guys as much analysis as we can going into this Friday, where there's a lot of mystery and unknown, obviously, as there always is with the weather. But guys, it draws a full field of decent field of 9, with the morning line favorite being the coupled entry on the inside. Obviously not on the inside, post position 3 and post position 8, but the number 1, Avenue Nile and Olkovska for Clement and Graham Motion, both 2-1. And the second choice is Anatolian for Manny Franco, Mike Maker at 3-1. So bringing up the picks right now as I switch over to the PPs. And as you'll see, my turf picks are obviously in front in the parentheses. Those are my dirt picks. We all had the same 3 horses in this race. Charlie, you are going with me as well with the number 4 Anatolian, but Patrick, you're going with the couple entry. I'm assuming you gave me the number 1 Avenue Nile as your top pick.
Yeah. This is a tough race. I just, this horse comes from overseas, and just the horse didn't, a horse showed improvement throughout the race, but just didn't really feel like it fit in that spot, and needed a race over here, and has been working well for Christophe. I just think that she gets another trip at this distance on the turf course, and she should improve in this spot. But I can't stand these entries from a betting standpoint. It's just not fun. I was trying to pick another horse, but I just think this horse is going to improve greatly off that last race.
I mean, easily could, just coming off that long layoff, and obviously coming from the races she's been running in. If it does go on the turf at a softer turf, she'll definitely appreciate a little bit of giving the ground. The one I think will take a lot more money if it comes up soft, which based on the weather, it looks like it if they even stay on the turf. But the number 1 Avenue Nile, and even the even the 1A also has very good soft turf form. So the 1 is definitely not to be taken lightly in this spot. But Charlie, you and I both have the number 4 Anatolian in first, coming off paired by our top in the last 2. We'll need to improve, but she sure looks ready to do it.
Yeah, again, I've talked about this before. I love consistency, and Anatolian doesn't have some number that jumps off the page. But if you look at some of these other horses where they have struggled, you honestly look, ever since the layoff from July of 22, every race has been in the 70s and has been, slowly but surely stepping up forward. But I also feel like when you go to these longer races, it's not as easy to have one of those, jump off the page, high 80s, 90 figure that maybe you could see in a sprint or a 5-6 for a long race. I like that Manny Franco's back on the saddle. When I watched the replay, I really felt like he gave the horse the best possible trip he could execute, and the horse did look like it was running huge late. But ultimately, I believe the horse that won was the not like heavy favorite, but the clear favorite, and just flew by late. Nothing really Anatolian could do after briefly getting onto the lead for as short as it lasted. But yeah, love Michael Maker. The horse has been working forwardly with a very solid workout at 5 furlongs. Was at a bit of a price last time. Now it looks like with the new morning line finally back to taking money again. And I think a similar effort to last time with a little step forward is certainly good enough to win.
This is a favorite angle of Matt Bernier, who's a very good friend of this podcast. He loves the paired by our top angle to be able to take a step forward. And even so, a 76 is not out of the realm of possibility for any of these horses in this field, let alone, if this horse improves to low 80s in her 5th start for a 4-year-old season, I think that's definitely within the realm. And I think she sits a really nice stalking trip in this spot. I'm very interested in Anatolian. But Patrick, I'll let you touch on the number 6, Sweet Duchess, and then Charlie, I'll let you touch on anything before we move on, before I give my dirt picks out. But she has back numbers, and it's even the last 3 races will definitely be good enough to win this race.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure why she was on the lead in that last race, but then I looked at the the speed in that race and the pace and the numbers for the quarter and stuff like that, and it was slow, and I understood why. I think they're going to revert back to coming from off the pace with this horse, but it shows that she's tactical, which isn't a problem, especially going, the mile and 3/8 in this spot. And, faced tough competition. Chili Flag did recently just run and actually did lose as odds-on favorite, but still a solid horse. So, Sweet Duchess, in this spot, I'd hope to get a bit of a price, but she's right in there with them.
Yeah, and just I think based on figures alone, I don't think you're going to get a price. I think 7-2 is a pretty fair.
Yeah.
I mean, she hasn't won since early 22 at Tampa Bay in a main special weight, but 5 seconds, 5/3. This was definitely one to be considered at least in the money on your tickets. But Sweet Duchess, who's going to be a low price again, being that she hasn't won in almost 20 months, is definitely one thing to be considered as well. But one question I want to touch on, Jim Pollars put in the chat that the only win that Anatolian had was in a maiden 16 on turf, which is 100% correct at Gulfstream in May. So now I have to take was 12-1 in the last. Now will be 3-1 here. He may beat me, but a pass on my tickets. Jim, that's a drink for you, my friend. It is a she. But anyway,
Kyle's just mad that you're going against his pick, Jim. It's okay.
No, yeah. Well, you know me, man. You got to get pissed off when someone tells you you're wrong. But Jim, I agree with you. It just seems like this spot came up really light, and I think that even though the filly kind of faded a little bit last time out, I think she appreciates the extra distance and being able to. Where she's being able to improve off those last 2 buyer tops, I think will be the pushover for Anatolian. But your point is definitely taken. But I think there's like horses like the 6 where there's a lot more question marks on the winning line than number 4 Anatolian. But like I said, Jim, your point is definitely taken. Charlie, I'll leave you the last word here. Wherever you want to go, feel free to round out your picks.
Yeah, so actually a horse I don't have up here, but just wanted to touch on. While I do like Sweet Duchess, have the horse second, the distance change will certainly be interesting. But as you kind of noted, the only concern I have is, just the lack of odds and value that you might get. But a horse I just want to shout out was I believe it's the 8, Lullaby Land, who I just think is interesting simply from a price point perspective. I don't know if you'll get 8-1. You honestly probably will. Picks up Jose Ortiz, who seems to be the jockey that consistently from a buyer's perspective gets the most out of this horse. You see on June 1st ran really well against Anatolian, who we both have up on top, and didn't get the best trip, as you see, got bumped, started to make a gain, and just set right up there. And for a horse that doesn't necessarily have the best early speed, and that race chose to sit a little closer up. So I like that versatility. Again, just for me, a horse that interests me to at least put underneath, because I feel like if you do want to lean with the 1, the 4, the 6, I feel like you really just have to go with one of them, because they're probably going to be the 3 horses taking all the money. Yep. And if you're looking for a horse to maybe put underneath to get value, the figures here certainly fit on this horse.
I don't disagree with you. And the one thing that's interesting about this 8, this is kind of the, even though he's not really working well at all, this horse never seems like that she has been a good worker. So even the 52s don't really bother me by any means, but this is the one horse that's going to be your pace meltdown horse. If the pace melts down, which one of these horses is going to be the one that's coming late to pick up the pieces? Because realistically, Lullaby Land has no speed at all, it seems like, in any spot like this. You see she's closing from 9th, 10th, 7th, 10th, like 14, 16 lengths back. If the pace does get hot in this race and melt down, Lullaby Land is definitely one you'll want to have underneath. So one thing I want to touch on, we got nice words from the boss in the chat, so we obviously have to shout him out when the boss gives us nice words, but says he's so damn impressed with the way these guys explain their selections and their detailed analysis. They were good handicappers when we started the show, but they've upped their game big time, and a lot of agreed. Charles B., Richard, and Jim Pollars, thanks guys so much for all the kind words. We try to bring you guys what we can at our best, and obviously starting this show out was an experiment early in January, but I think we've definitely flourished in the last few months, and especially since Saratoga started, we've really had to put our nose to the grindstone per se, and get shit done basically. But I'm glad you guys are enjoying it now, and I really appreciate all the kind words. But guys, moving on to excuse me. Before I go on, I want to talk about the dirt. So with the weather looking as bad as it does, there's 3 MTOs on the outside. The number 10, Peak Popularity, the number 11, She Caught My Eye, and the number 12, Run Devil. I think there's 2 that are much above the third in this spot. I went with Peak Popularity on top. If this horse does go to the dirt, I really like this maiden breaker going 1.25 miles at Churchill, which is never easy to do. Florence Giroux, I think she just sits a very nice trip. A lot of upside also for Peak Popularity. And obviously I talk about it all the time, but these off the turf races are just generally an easier spot when these MTOs get in. They're facing a lot of turf meant horses that might not take to the dirt as well as these other races, like an allowance optional claiming at Ellis, where you're getting beat by 11 lengths. So Peak Popularity is extremely interesting if this race gets taken off the dirt or off the turf, and put on the dirt. So as She Caught My Eye. I mean, running at starter allowances, this was one of those horses that came back after 9 days for Linda Rice, ran second. The first, ran third the second time now. Gives her a little bit of time off as a 4-year-old. Gets put into this spot that looks a little bit easier. She will be up front. And if Peak Popularity will sit a stalking trip, is not able to get there, I think the one that will be the speed if this race comes off the turf is the number 11, She Caught My Eye. And real quick, the horse that in the main body that I think would stay on that's a little bit interesting would be the number 7, Modern Love, for Ian Wilkes, Julian Leperoux running in. This horse has always been meant for turf. Actually broke its maiden on an off the turf race itself, but in a very soul pace. I think Modern Love, even though the figures are slow, looks very interesting, at least for underneath. And I'm not sure how many would stay in. Obviously, it's, the guessing game, as we all call it. But Modern Love will be the one that would pick up the pieces, I think, if this race was to come off the turf and only have about 4 or 5 horses. Modern Love could be ones to close out the underneaths. I'm going 4-6-1 if it stays on the turf, 10-11-7 if it comes off. Patrick is 1-6-4. Charlie is 4-6-1. Guys, moving on to the feature on the day, and it is a very, very nice race. I argued that, this could be one of the best grade ones we've seen all meets. And I know it's only 6 horses, but you have the really heavy hitters of the older fillies and mares division, obviously led by the number 5 in this race, Nest, who is your 4-5 morning line favorite. The number 6, Clairiere, is your 5-2 second choice, and Idiomatic on the fence for Florent Giroux and Brad Cox, your 3-1 third choice. I understand, we all talk about these field sizes and how, but these are, again, your heavy hitters. You have Idiomatic, who's the up and comer in this division, Secret Oath, Nest, Clairiere, even 63 Caliber has been a mainstay in this division, but also Arlington legend Wayne Catalano brings a horse over from Hawthorne who won at, I believe, an optional claiming at Hawthorne, and now brings her over here great, ready to bang. And I love it. It's awesome. But
good for him.
Hey, this, look, it's a $500,000 purse in a 6-horse field. No matter what, you're going to probably win more than if you win another 40,000. Maybe she gets 4th and she takes home a pretty decent chunk of the purse. But I am switching over the picks right now. So I'm going to play a game with the chat. We have a pretty decent viewership going. This is a perfect game, a chat game. How many people do you think went with Nest in this spot? At least one of us did. Is it 1, 2, or 3 people going with Nest in this spot? I'll tell you what it should be. But I want to see in the chat real quick how many people think we went with Nest. Michael Austin says 2. Howard the Boss says 1. Matt Miller lurking in the chat says 1. Chris Mack says 3. Michael Austin says 1 person. Let's see. Here's grade 1 Judmont. Yeah, I get it. I agree with you. Raymond Colley says all 3. Jim Pilar says hopefully all 3. Well, I will go with you, and it is 2. There's only 1 person that is crazy enough to not go with Nest in this spot, and it is the man to my direct right. Patrick, you have the floor to tell us why we're completely wrong and why you are going to win with Clairiere.
I'll tell you why, because the horse that gets the rail, Idiomatic, for Brad Cox, will send like there's no tomorrow and will make Nest sit a tough spot, and Clairiere will pounce like she does with that closing famous kick she has. Listen, I don't like that I have to put my eggs in the basket on another horse to make Clairiere, how Clairiere is going to win this race, but I just think that Idiomatic's not going to win this race from coming off the pace.
No.
So she's going to have to take them the distance or as far as she can to have any chance. You know, she's had trouble getting out of the gate sometimes, which this is Idiomatic I'm talking about, which I'm a little concerned about. But I just think Clairiere, you know, she is so good. And I admire her so much for the way she just keeps coming back. A $3.1 million earnings she's had in her career. I get Nest is, you know, just unbelievable and, you know, comes off a layoff and runs a race like that. But that, you know, honestly, I tossed that race for Clairiere. Clairiere is not running that type of race like that. So that's my opinion. No, I know you guys are going to say, you know, Nest is going to sit forward in front of Clairiere and has the inside again. But, you know, there's a funny thing why you say that, Patrick, because those are exactly the words. There's two words that comes to my mind. Clairiere is extreme, like for all you kids, uber talented is how talented she is. She is pace dependent, which I think she gets it in this race.
But my problem is who goes with Idiomatic? Is Idiomatic just going to run on the lead?
Oh,
and
yes.
If she's not good enough to get, you know, Nest's going to get the first jump on Clairiere, and is Nest going to relinquish the lead to Clairiere after a 48.4 half mile?
Oh, I don't think I mean, if they go 48, I think Idiomatic might win if they go 48, to be honest with you.
Well, I just don't see them going lightning
I think they're going to, if I had to guess, they're going to fly. I see 23 and 46, something like that. I think they're flying.
Charlie, you got to back me up here, my friend. You are going with Ness as well. Do you see it the same way I do?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, the only other horse I see sending it.
Hey, and Howard, hey, we don't talk about that race anymore. There's a and my point is there's a difference between Secret Oath and Nest.
Oh,
but anyway, go ahead, Charlie.
Compare them.
Yeah, well, that actually, I was actually going to touch on that. That's what I was going to say is I think that's the key difference that we're missing here is running down Secret Oath versus running down Nest and running down Idiomatic is just a whole different ball game. And I don't think you'll get the pace. I mean, look, unless Wayne Catalano pulls something out of his hat where all of a sudden this two horse is just running incredibly forwardly too and can actually go toe to toe to Idiomatic and set some incredible pace for Clairiere, I just don't see it. I see the two stopping by, saying hi to everybody, saying, look at Arlington, like, look at us here. We made it. Like, we stopped by at the big time races. Exactly. I see Chris Amy laughing, saying you needed me to pull out a miracle. Dylan, he's not me. So I think this horse will stop by for a cup of coffee for the first quarter and then, you know, probably walk off.
A cup of coffee.
Idiomatic's just going to end up, you know, sitting back, enjoying itself, you know, just probably drinking a full cup of coffee, not a sip, because it'll be on the lead on its own after that first quarter, thinking it's over. But Ness is just going to come flying by. Clairiere is going to be all the way back, a horse that's off the screen, and then eventually be like, oh, wait, there's a race going on, and get going and go right by Secret Oath and, you know, flex on Secret Oath as the horse flies by saying, I got you again, and forget that Nest is still in this race and not that third time. That's how I see it happening.
Look, and Penn State
is going to break my heart again.
No, I know. But Penn State Scott says the one will win on the lead. Can't pass a horse you can't catch. I don't disagree with you, Penn State Scott, considering she has what looks like the pace advantage on paper. But I'll tell you what, the buyers say it, and she looks very fast. But this is a different ball game. This is the top of the division. And if Idiomatic wins on Saturday, she will definitely turn some heads as to her, like, things like her Breeders' Cup chances. But beating Nest and Clairiere, even with a front end advantage, is going to be a very tough thing. And guys, like I said, I don't know if we have to really talk about this race too much at all. I'm pretty much almost think we're done. I mean, 63 Caliber is a nice horse in her own right, but won at an optional claiming 80,000. Obviously, she did, to her credit, she did beat Nostalgic, who came back to run a very nice race. Yeah. Last time out in an optional claiming, got a 96 buyer, but I clicked the wrong thing. Sorry. Back workouts, by the way. But to her credit, it's not Nest, it's not Clairiere. It seems like a 2-horse race on paper. It most likely will be a 2-horse race on paper. Got to give credit to the queen of the Oaks, Secret Oath, but that last race does not give me any indication that she's going to run very well in this spot. And being that she's going to be right next with Nest and Clairiere, it just comes down to me where who do I want coming from the back out of those three? And for me, Secret Oath is much to the bottom of those two, in my opinion. But she is a great horse in her own right, and hopefully she can catch a piece underneath. And all you people that are giving a shit about Secret Oath, man, she looked so much the best on paper. I shouldn't say that, but look, from a pace perspective, she looked much the best on paper. Clairiere is just a monster, and that's the way it goes. But I'm giving you all you out there are all backing Howard. Come on, man. We got to give a little bit of credit to us, but I'm going Nest on top. Nest, Clairiere, Idiomatic. Patrick's going Clairiere, Nest, Idiomatic, and Charlie is going Nest, Clairiere, Secret Oath. So, like I said, I don't think we need to talk much more about that race. It's going to be a fantastic race on Friday, and hopefully we just see some of the best slug it out. Nice trips for everybody, and Nest wins by about a length with Clairiere closing behind her. But we'll see when we get to Friday. Last race of the day is another maiden special weight, 136,000, as my DRF refuses to load. So we'll switch over to Equibase. This one is also going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. And if it's off, it will go 5.5 on the main track. And Mike Monroe just joining in. Yep, we did cover that. Michael, you also were in here. He has a slight fractured left wrist and a dislocated collarbone. He will not be on his mounts this week. Michael Austin, I got to scroll up in the chat again, Howard. I'm sorry. I cannot remember this horse's name for the life of me. Where is it? Burning Bright is the name of the horse. She suffered a cardiac failure. She pretty much suffered a heart attack, broke through the inside rail, and unfortunately had to be euthanized. But Luis Saez was riding her, fell and dislocated collarbone and fractured left wrist, as we talked about at the top of the show. But obviously I know you guys weren't here. It was a very disgruntled scene. Hopefully he makes a quick recovery, and unfortunately to all the connections, condolences to all of them. But guys, switching over to the last races we were talking about, draws a full field of 11 on the turf with one MTO. Obviously Saez will not get the mount. We will look to see who does. Well, 5.5 furlongs on the turf with a very lukewarm favorite in number 2, Kowichin, for Florent Giroux and Wesley Ward, which is another thing that you don't see very often in Florent Giroux riding for Wesley Ward. But looking over the picks, and surprise, Charlie goes with the number 2 on top, and actually has our top pick nowhere, who is the Chad Brown to the outside, the number 10 and 9-2. Charlie, you get the opportunity and the honor of telling us why we are completely wrong in this spot, and why, my dear, if 1 doesn't load, and 2, why you like Kowichin.
Well, I feel a little bit better about myself right now, because I asked in the chat if people thought I put Wesley Ward on top, and the chat said no. So, you might thought it wasn't a surprise, but the chat still didn't see it coming. So I feel a little bit better. But no, you're right. Normally, you've seen Johnny V a lot with Wesley Ward. So certainly is an interesting combination. But look, the horse came back off the layoff, ran a much better figure. I know the horse didn't get the job done. And was obviously not surprised, bet to favoritism. And I get it. Look, the horse is starting to look like a money burner. I completely get it. But we've talked about this countless times on the show. It feels like the two things we always say are, we have baby races where we say you got to see the board, and we have these maiden races where we say this is like the horse's last chance to prove him right. And I think this is this horse's chance. Kowichin, I don't know if I butchered the name, whatever. The point is, this horse's figures are so much better than the rest of this field. If this race stays on the turf, obviously if it goes off, you probably put the MTO or maybe the Chad Brown horse I'd probably honestly put on top if this switches surface. But if this stays on the turf, this horse has the figures. Came back second time off the layoff for Wesley Ward. I think this horse should romp this field. I really do like this horse. The only reason I didn't end up making this one of my best bets was simply because of the surface thing worrying me, is I don't know if this will stay on the turf. I think this 2 is very tough. I think there are some other interesting horses. But yeah, I don't know. The Chad Brown horse, I know maybe the horse was meant for turf, and now it is on turf, but the horse just doesn't do enough for me to take a chance. And I don't think you're going to get value. I think that horse will be bet down. So since that's my strong horse I'm putting out on, I wanted to look for 2 value plays underneath. That was my angle, at least.
I understand, and that's fully taken. It's like you said it's just starting to look like a money burner, and this is kind of put up or shut up time for Kowichin here. But Wesley Ward obviously still has faith in this filly. Hopefully she gets a good trip from the inside, as I also have her in second. Patrick has her in third. Patrick, going to our top picks, number 10, Arasu Arasso. What is with these names today? I'm the person that's got to deal with it because I'm the one announcing it.
Yeah.
But Arasso for Chad, Irad Ortiz. I'm gonna go to the dam and the Grand Dam, where the turf breeding comes from, which I'm sure you saw as well. But what'd you like most about Arasso?
Yeah, I like that. She showed in her last race. I know it was on the dirt, wasn't supposed to. It was supposed to be on the turf. Obviously Saratoga's been getting a lot of rain. I just liked how she showed, the willingness to, fight back. She was 5 wide, and she improved throughout that race. And in this spot, I think she's going to sit from off the pace in a spot with a lot of speed, and this horse should thrive on the turf. Especially, we all know Chad is fantastic with the turf races, and this horse should be perfect second out.
I completely agree with you. Obviously, Chad always meant this horse for turf. As I go to the family tree here, Goyas was an unraced dam, but Genuine Quality was a very nice turf sprinter over in Ireland. Over in Great Britain, came over to the States at Santa Anita, never won, but ran some pretty decent buyers. And Leslie's Lady, the other Grand Dam, was another very nice horse. Obviously back in 2000, but sprinting on the turf was also her forte. So the breeding is there. Chad has always meant this horse for turf. Second time out, there's just a lot of things that are pointing to Arasso saying go on Friday. And I think that she is very interesting. Strike 2. She's very interesting on Friday. But Patrick, you have the number 4 Riviere for George Weaver, and obviously not Luis Saez. But what'd you like most about Riviere as your second choice?
Yeah, that horse also comes out of that last race in Saratoga that got switched, that sprint race that got switched back to the dirt. She didn't like the dirt either. If she gets back to her Belmont on debut race, she's been working well on the turf. I think she'll improve, from that turf race, and I think she should be right there. I mean, I think if she improves as well as the 10 does, the 2 has not shown me anything to make me think that she's a clear favorite. So I'll take a shot with a horse that, is going to be better odds and has shown talent.
This is the very spot that we look for, a favorite who likes to run second and third will be bet down again. And you're just looking for prices. Riviera, I like the back to turf angle, running a 69 could easily improve off that this time, getting back to the turf. If it stays on, of course, I'm not going to sound like a broken record, but it's the obvious elephant in the room. Riviera is definitely interesting coming back on the turf. Charlie, I'll let you touch on your 2 horses before we get to our last races, but we'll go through them pretty quickly here.
Yeah, look, for me, honestly, I feel like when a horse has only run 4 or 5 races, I still think it's too early to talk about a horse that doesn't get the job done and that likes to finish second, third. Now, this, ladies and gentlemen, this is a horse that does not like to win and wants to finish second and third. So I know you're thinking, why is this horse in my top 3? Well, for me, it's very simple. Again, if I'm as confident, assuming again that this race stays on the turf, that the Wesley Ward horse will be very tough to beat, why not look for a horse that consistently puts up very solid figures and has an obsession with seconditis and finishing second? I feel like Joel Rosario, this horse has good figures. I think we'll set a nice stalking trip just off the speed. I think this horse will close up and probably run well. I just don't think the horse will win, but I think the horse will be right there. A horse that still has finished 12 out of 16 races in the money. So the horse isn't a bad horse. The horse likes to run well. She just doesn't like to win. So I think risk-free will certainly be somewhere. And at 8-1, I mean, if this horse comes underneath in second, you have it in exacta, you're getting it underneath. So that was my angle with risk-free. And then I'm going to let you pronounce the 9 horse to introduce it for me because I feel like you love pronouncing those kind of names. So can you introduce the 9?
That's Oolong High. I know that one. That one's pretty
Oolong
easy.
High. I don't know. A lot of O's for me.
You should have put him on the spot, Kyle, and made him say it.
I should have done that. That would have been better. But anyway,
but yeah, for Oolong High, I like the outside gate for this horse. I think this horse will certainly be sending with the 107 early pace. And again, just another one that always is somewhere around there in the money. And I just think will just completely send it. Could end up surprising and get away from this field and win. Who knows? So certainly a price. I think this one is more likely to win than the 5, but I just think the 5 is the safer bet to finish underneath. But another one, if you're looking for the exactas or a price to play, because I think you will get all of that 6-1, certainly an interesting one where if this one gets away, could win this race.
I agree with you. I think Oolong High, especially on the front end, looking like the speed of the speed. Although the post, I probably like her a little more if she was more 5-6 post, but could definitely clear. There's not a whole lot of speed to her inside. So being out of the 9 post shouldn't hurt her too much. I like Oolong High a lot. will be interesting in this spot. But Katie, thanks so much for doing this. So I see you a lot. I love the Elite Power Gun Night rivalry talk that's being in the chat right now. Elite Power could win. I think it could literally go either way. They're two of the best horses in training, in my opinion. And if Gun Night gets a better pace setup, will actually stop being goofy and switching leads all the time, I think Gun Knight's very dangerous. And obviously Elite Power is just a monster in his own right. Another great edition of that race will be coming up on Saturday. But I also have the number 10 in first if it comes off the turf. I just think second time out for Chad, working well on the dirt, showed that he could run well on the dirt. I think Arasso is very interesting no matter what surface she runs on. I also have the number 5, Charlie's horse, on the turf. I have the number 5, Risk Free, in second on the dirt. I just think her dirt form will definitely show up if this race comes off, especially against a bunch of turf meant runners. So Risk Free is definitely interesting for me if this race comes off the turf. And then I have number 12, White Chocolate, the MTO, for Chad Summers, and whoever picks up the mount for Luis Saez. But this horse is working bullet after bullet at the Oklahoma in the mornings. He will definitely be forwardly placed and will not that's strike 3. I'm out, by the way. So Patrick's now hosting. But anyway, she should be forwardly placed and will not be out in the 12 hole. Most likely there will be some scratches to the inside. So White Chocolate being out of the 8 post, I'd like her a lot more than the 12, but there's a lot of interesting ways you can go if this race comes off the turf, being whichever runners stay in. I'm going 10-2-9. Patrick's going 10-4-2. Charlie's going 2-5-9. And if this race comes off the turf, I'm going 10-5-12. Guys, switching to our best bets now. We'll keep it pretty short and sweet for you guys, and we'll move on. But Charlie, your best bets for the weekend are the number 1 a win on the number 1, Prove Right in the 5th race, which we actually didn't talk about. Race number 7, an exacta 3/1, and at race number 10, an exacta 2/5. Go ahead and talk about your best bets.
Yeah, so I'll talk the majority of it just about Prove Right since that's the only race we didn't cover. Yeah, this horse, I mean, unfortunately, was supposed to have Luis Saez, as you've already touched on with the injuries. We'll see who picks up the mount. But this horse came off a solid 82 figure, second best figure, and as you kind of mentioned with the angle, you like back-to-back 82 figures. Ran against Fort Bragg, ran against much tougher competition than this, went to a level like this field, and then ended up winning going away after sitting off the pace. Think this horse will come back and win again nicely. Just pay attention, everyone, as Kyle mentioned, to see who's on the mount for that race. And then as we touched on with race 7, I made it clear that I really do like Headland in this spot. So for me, I was just looking for a horse to put underneath. And as you mentioned, that the one horse should sit that perfect trip off the pace. So because of that, I think that the horse could close up and get there, but just not quite in time. And then in race 10, as I touched on, I love the Wesley Ward horse, think the horse should absolutely win. So if that's how I feel, I want to look for a price underneath. That 5 horse has an obsession with coming in second. So hopefully that obsession continues and I could get a nice payout with that horse at 8-1 underneath. So those are my 3 best bets.
Jim, I see that comment in there. I ain't bringing it up, but I'll take the crap because I got 3 strikes. I'm out for today. But God damn it, Patrick, your best bets for the weekend are the race number 7, a win on the number 8 on the 1s and 2s, and then race number 9, a double 6-10 ice cold.
Ice cold, yeah, on the 1s and 2s. Norm Cassie hitting at an unbelievable rate. That horse is going to be second off the layoff. I really like that horse, especially at nice odds. And then that ice cold double in the personal ensign, Clairiere, Miss Clairiere, with Arasso, the 10. I think you get some nice odds in the doubles there. And yeah, that'll be my bets. I'll play Nest. Don't worry, I'll have Nest people. I'm not fading Nest, but I'm telling you, Clairiere is ready to go.
The last thing I'll close out this show with is, what the best part is that every bet that Patrick just gave out, I basically have the complete opposite.
Oh, that's
so
nice.
I'm going with
good
my 2 best bets. Race number 7, I have a win on the number 1. You Look Cold, the inside horse for Bill Mott, who I think gets a very, very nice trip, stalking trip from that inside draw. And race number 8, a double on the turf. It's going to be 4-6 with Nest in the personal ensign. And if it switches to the dirt, I'm taking the 2 MTOs, 10-11 with 5. Obviously, check your probables, check your value, because if that race does come off the turf and there's not many horses that stay there, that double could be very, very bet down. So keep in mind value as you're looking at these races if they come off the turf, especially to those MTOs who generally just take a little bit more money on their own, being that their dirt horse is getting in to a turf spot. But those are my best bets. Good luck to everybody out there and to you guys as well playing this weekend, as I know we'll be out there. Thanks, guys, so much to everybody in the chat. You guys have been amazing as always. And I'll put Michael Austin's pick 5 as the man is putting it out there for everybody else. So I'm putting him on the spot as well, just like we are. He is both. I would usually give him shit for putting both Nest and CLAIRIERE in there, but I get it. It's very hard to choose between the two. For those YouTube viewers, that's Michael Austin's Late Pick 5. Looks pretty cheap as well. Good luck, Michael, if you play that, which I'm sure you will on Friday. But guys, thank you guys again so much in the chat. You guys have been awesome tonight. It's been absolutely great. And that is true. NCAA football does start this weekend, even though first week's, whatever. But
Irish are in Ireland.
Yeah. No one cares. No one cares about that. No one cares about Ohio State. It's all about Michigan. They're winning that shit this year. Doesn't matter. Number 2 team in the country right now will be number 1 by the
cheating coach who got suspended.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Hold on. I give it a.
At least we don't cheat.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. Where's your former head coach that got fired?
He was busy trying to go to the NFL and installing a hostile work environment.
Hostile work environment. That's where you go with it.
But not at college. At OSU was great. The Florida team, he's never had any crime. Urban Meyers is innocent at OSU as it gets.
Yeah. Whatever you say. The Ohio State fan defending Urban Meyer. But guys, again, in all serious, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. For Patrick and Charlie, it's been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode number 36 of Bettin N Boozin. Thanks, guys, again, and crush your bets this Friday and Saturday for TRAVERS Weekend at Saratoga. Check that show out tomorrow night with Howard, Pete, and Paul, and have a great night, everyone.